The desert sun hit the asphalt like a hammer, warping the air above the motor pool into shimmering waves. Even before the bugle finished its notes, soldiers were already on the move, boots striking in rhythm, shoulders squared, every motion sharp and rehearsed. But in the middle of that precision stood one figure who seemed out of sync, even though her uniform was perfectly regulation. Staff Sergeant Elena Cortez had learned to make herself invisible. For weeks, she'd done what was asked of her and nothing more, always keeping her head down, never offering excuses, never asking for favors. She moved through the base like a shadow, silent, dutiful, forgettable. And maybe that was the problem. Rumors had been circulating since she arrived. Some said she was a transfer from a failed unit. Others whispered she'd been pulled from combat after freezing under fire. The truth was simple enough: she was new here, and new blood always drew suspicion. The army loved order, but it loved conformity even more, and Elena, no matter how much she tried, never seemed to fit the mold. It showed in training. She was competent, but never flashy. She could run the obstacle course, hit the range, clear a room, but she didn't dominate. When others shouted and celebrated victories, she just nodded and walked off. When squads broke into cliques at chow, she sat by herself near the window. She was never late, never sloppy, but also never spectacular. And in a place where mediocrity could be lethal, that stood out. The murmurs followed her from the rifle range to the kill house, from PT sessions to tactical drills. "Dead weight," someone muttered after she missed a clean shot. "Wrong place, wrong time," another said when she lagged behind during a sprint. It was never direct, never loud enough to count as harassment, but always sharp enough to cut. By the third week, her squad leader had heard enough. "Cortez," he barked during morning formation, "command wants a full evaluation. You're underperforming across the board. You've got until Friday to prove you belong here. Otherwise, you're out. Clear?" She stood at attention, voice steady. "Clear, Sergeant." But inside, something twisted. Not fear. Not anger. Something deeper, older. That night, she sat alone on her bunk, rolling her dog tags between her fingers. The barracks buzzed with laughter and chatter, soldiers comparing times and bragging about shots landed. No one noticed her slip away, gear bag slung over her shoulder. She walked to the far end of the base, past the motor pool, past the empty hangars, to the darkened range. There, under floodlights humming with static, she trained alone. Her hands moved with a precision that didn't match her daytime fumbles. Magazines clicked into place without hesitation. Target transitions flowed like water, fast and fluid. It was a rhythm she knew by heart, a rhythm she'd been taught somewhere else, by someone else. But she kept it hidden. Because what she carried wasn't just training. It was memory. And memory could be a weapon all its own. The next morning, the whispers intensified. Word had spread that Friday was do or die for Cortez. Some smirked, betting she wouldn't last the week. Others shrugged, saying it didn't matter, better one less liability in the field. Only one man seemed to notice what no one else did, the base commander. Colonel Nathan Briggs was a career soldier, tall and silver-haired, his uniform immaculate, his eyes sharp from decades spent in hard places. He wasn't known for sentiment, but he had a gift for reading people. And when he passed Cortez on the drill field, he didn't just see the soldier she presented. He saw the way her eyes scanned exits, the way she never sat with her back exposed, the way her hands twitched when someone dropped a tray too loudly in the mess hall. Signs. Little signs. Signs of someone who'd seen too much. Still, rules were rules. If her evaluation failed, she'd be out. By Thursday, the tension was unbearable. Cortez's squad was assigned a final set of drills: weapons inspection, physical fitness, tactical coordination, and uniform check. Each soldier was expected to present themselves flawlessly, every detail precise. She passed the weapons inspection, though barely. Her rifle was clean, but a single carbon stain earned her a raised eyebrow. She crushed the physical fitness test, running the mile faster than half the squad, though no one congratulated her. In tactical coordination, she hesitated at a door breach, costing her team precious seconds and more whispers of dead weight. And then came the uniform check. Each soldier lined up in the hangar, boots polished, fatigues crisp, insignia aligned. The inspecting officer moved down the row, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. When he reached Cortez, he paused. "Remove your blouse," he ordered, meaning the camouflage top. Standard procedure. Soldiers wore undershirts beneath, ensuring modesty. Cortez unbuttoned the blouse and shrugged it off, revealing the olive-drab t-shirt beneath. And that's when it happened. As she turned, the fabric shifted, and something inked into her skin caught the officer's eye. A tattoo, sprawling across her back, black lines sharp even under the dim hangar lights. "Sergeant," the officer snapped, "what is that?" The room went silent. Dozens of soldiers craned their necks to see. The tattoo was no ordinary design. It wasn't a rose, or a name, or some drunken barrack stare. It was an emblem, one known to very few, and only whispered about by fewer still. A dagger piercing through a broken mask. The mark of a program most soldiers thought was rumor, a ghost story told in bars. The officer stepped back, unsettled. Before he could speak, a voice echoed from the far end of the hangar. "Stand down." Colonel Briggs strode forward, boots striking the concrete, eyes locked on Cortez's back. For a long moment, he said nothing. He just studied the ink, his jaw tightening. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but carried through the hangar. "Where did you get that tattoo, Sergeant?" Cortez stood at attention, spine rigid, eyes forward. "With respect, sir," she said evenly, "you already know." Murmurs rippled through the formation. The officer with the clipboard looked confused. But Briggs knew. He had seen that emblem once before, in a place he never spoke about, on a file stamped with more red ink than any mission report had a right to bear. He looked at Cortez again, and for the first time since she arrived, someone didn't see failure. He saw danger contained, a story buried, and a soldier who wasn't what she seemed. And from that moment, everything changed. The hangar buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. Soldiers shifted in formation, eyes darting between Cortez and the colonel. Most didn't understand what they were seeing, but the weight in Briggs's voice told them it was serious. The inspecting officer cleared his throat, trying to reassert control. "Sir, the evaluation." "Dismissed," Briggs said sharply. The officer blinked, confused. "Sir?" "I said dismissed. All of you. Out." Boots shuffled, reluctant, but no one dared argue. Within moments, the cavernous hangar was empty except for Cortez and the colonel. The heavy steel doors closed with a groan, sealing them in silence. Briggs stepped closer, his gaze hard as iron. "That tattoo," he said slowly. "That mark doesn't exist. Not officially. Which means one of two things: you're either the most reckless forger I've ever seen, or you're carrying ghosts you're not supposed to." Cortez didn't flinch. "It's not a forgery, sir." His jaw tightened. He'd suspected as much. He'd heard whispers of a unit built for missions no one wanted on record. Black operations so buried even generals had to squint to read the files. But seeing proof, inked into a soldier's skin? That was something else. "Do you understand the position this puts me in?" he asked, his tone dropping. "I've got paperwork on my desk recommending your dismissal. I've got instructors calling you a liability. And now I've got confirmation you're tied to a program I was never supposed to hear about. So tell me, Sergeant, why are you here?" For the first time, Cortez hesitated. Not out of fear, but calculation. "Because they told me to be," she said finally. Briggs frowned. "Who's they?" Cortez met his eyes, and for a heartbeat he saw something beneath the steady surface, something worn, fractured, but unbroken. "Sir, if you don't already know, I can't tell you." The colonel studied her. Her tone wasn't defiant, it was resigned. Bound by rules even he couldn't see. And in that moment, Briggs realized something unsettling. The underperformance, the hesitation, the failures, they weren't incompetence. They were restraint. He took a step back, voice lower now. "You've been holding back." Silence. "That's it, isn't it?" Still nothing, but her eyes gave her away. He exhaled slowly, memory stirring of another war, another place. He remembered a night in Kandahar, smoke and fire rolling through the dark, and the aftermath, the discovery of a squad that had gone where no one else dared, accomplished what no one else could, and disappeared like shadows before dawn. They'd left nothing behind but whispers. And now one of them was standing in his hangar. "You know what this means?" he said finally. "If I let the paperwork go through, they'll bury you. And if I don't," he trailed off, the weight of command settling on him. Cortez adjusted her stance. "With respect, sir, I don't need saving. I just need space to do my job." Her words carried no arrogance, only quiet certainty. Briggs paced, boots echoing. "The problem is, you've made everyone believe you can't do the job. You've given them nothing but failure to judge you by." "Why?" Her jaw tightened. She almost spoke, then stopped. Finally, she said, "Because authorization matters. Without it, I don't operate." Briggs froze. The words landed like stones. Authorization. The very concept reeked of control beyond the chain of command, of conditioning designed to leash a weapon until the right moment. And suddenly it clicked. The hesitation wasn't failure. It was programming. He stared at her, realization turning to unease. "So all this time?" Cortez didn't answer. She didn't need to. Briggs rubbed his temple. He was standing in the middle of a storm he hadn't asked for, but could no longer ignore. "Friday's evaluation," he said finally. "If you fail, you're out. If you pass, maybe they reconsider. But if what I think is true," he stopped himself, measuring his words, "then I'd better be standing close enough to see it for myself." Cortez gave the faintest nod. "Understood, sir." For the next 2 days, the atmosphere on base shifted. Soldiers whispered about the tattoo, about why the colonel himself had cleared the hangar. Cortez noticed the stares but ignored them. She trained alone at night, each motion precise, mechanical, contained. And on Friday morning, the stage was set. The evaluation yard buzzed with anticipation. Squads stood ready, instructors with clipboards at the perimeter. The scenario was straightforward, a simulated hostage rescue in a mock urban environment. Time limit 30 minutes. Points awarded for precision, speed, and civilian safety. Points lost for casualties, hesitation, and tactical errors. It was the same drill Cortez had failed before. Only this time, the colonel himself was watching. Markham, the squad's self-appointed alpha, smirked as the roster was read. "Looks like dead weight's back with us." "Outstanding." His tone dripped sarcasm. Torres chuckled. Peters snickered. Miller shook his head like it was already over. Cortez ignored them. She checked her rifle, adjusted her vest, eyes forward. The buzzer sounded. The squad moved. From the start, things unraveled. Cortez hesitated at the first entry, just as before. Peters rushed in, took a hit, called himself down. "Thanks, Cortez," he spat, loud enough for the instructors to hear. Markham barked orders, his voice sharp with frustration. "Stay in the back. Let the rest of us work." It looked like a replay of every failure she'd endured. And then Colonel Briggs made his move. He stepped to the edge of the yard, his voice carrying like a rifle shot. "Cortez." She froze, head turning. Authorization echo black. "Execute." The shift was instantaneous. Her posture straightened, shoulders loose but coiled. Her rifle snapped to ready position with a speed no one had seen. She flowed past Markham before he could blink, eyes locked on corners and shadows no one else had registered. The transformation was absolute. She cleared the first room in seconds, precise shots dropping targets before her squad even realized threats existed. Her weapon shifted from strong to weak shoulder effortlessly, angles cut with surgical precision. Her reloads weren't just fast, they were art, performed mid-stride without breaking rhythm. Holy, Torres started, but his voice was drowned by the rapid crack of controlled pairs. The instructor's clipboards froze midair. The colonel's face was unreadable, but his eyes tracked every motion. Cortez moved like water downhill, unstoppable, inevitable. Every hesitation that had marked her before was gone, replaced by instinct honed in places too dark for the sun to reach. The squad scrambled to keep up, their earlier mockery swallowed by disbelief. Markham barked, "What the hell," but she was already 3 rooms ahead, carving through the scenario like it was muscle memory. By the time they reached the hostage room, the 30-minute time limit had become 10. Cortez scanned the geometry, read the threat angles, and moved. 2 hostiles down before anyone could breathe. Hostage secured. Extraction plotted without pause. The buzzer sounded success. The yard went silent. Instructors stared at their stopwatches. Soldiers stared at Cortez. Markham pulled off his helmet, eyes wide, chest heaving. What was that?" Cortez saved her weapon, expression calm, almost indifferent. "That was me doing my job." Briggs exhaled, a ghost of a smile tugging at his mouth. He'd seen enough. And in that moment, Staff Sergeant Elena Cortez was no longer invisible. She was undeniable. The noise returned in a rush, voices, boots, the metallic clack of bolts, but to Elena it all felt distant, like she was hearing through glass. The stillness inside her wasn't numbness, it was trained calm, the same quiet that settled over night flights and doorways. It faded when Colonel Briggs stopped in front of her and spoke just loud enough for the instructors to hear. "Sergeant Cortez," he said. "Debrief. Now." She nodded. Markham stared as if a stranger had borrowed a familiar face. Torres looked at the ground. Peters studied the gravel between his boots. No one blocked her path to the admin building. The debrief room was windowless and cool. Briggs didn't sit. He circled once, then faced her. "Explanation," he said. "Authorization echo black," she replied. "You gave it, sir." "I know what I said. I want to know what I saw." Elena held her gaze on the far wall. "Compartmentalized operations. Conditioning suppresses performance until an authorized command triggers release. Limits prevent unapproved deployment." He watched her. "How long have you carried that leash?" "Long enough to forget what running feels like." His jaw tightened. "And the tattoo?" "A memorial," she said. "Not to a unit, to a rule. We broke it once." Briggs set a folder on the table, redactions stark even on paper. "Your visible record is a mess. Underneath, it's perfect. That's a trick I don't like." He exhaled. "Recommendation for dismissal is rescinded. Evaluation score stands as course best. Effective immediately, you are reassigned to teach, and to answer when I call." "What role specifically, sir?" "Training and Special Missions Liaison." Translation: you pass on what keeps people alive. When the other thing is needed, we'll discuss authorization. Relief didn't show on her face, but her shoulders eased. "Understood." "Good," he said. "There's one more stop." Outside, the yard had thinned. Markham's crew lingered by the bleachers, loud on purpose until they saw the colonel and fell quiet. Briggs halted within earshot. "Sergeant," he said to Markham, "you like an audience. Use it to practice humility." Markham swallowed. "Sir?" Briggs turned slightly. "Cortez?" Elena met Markham's eyes without heat. "You were right," she said. "I was a liability, restrained. Next time, assess the why before you decide the who." Color crept up Markham's neck. He opened his mouth, closed it, managed a dry copy. Torres cleared his throat. "What you did, can you teach that?" "No," she said. "But I can teach what keeps you alive until someone who can does it." That landed. Peters started an apology, she spared him with a nod that said it was over. By nightfall the base turned rumor into policy. A memo followed, some evaluations would now include an observer authorized to lift restraints if applicable. No acronyms. No program names. Just a procedure to catch the rare soldier engineered not to reveal. At lights out she returned to the hangar where everything had turned. She shrugged off her blouse, touched the ink, and remembered the rule they'd once broken: a rooftop in a loud city, ash on the wind, a window closing with a hostage inside. The net went dead. The code never came. She went anyway. The hostage lived. So did she. The cost was written into skin because paper burns. Morning brought a different tempo. She didn't swagger. She began with silence and fundamentals: how to breathe when panic rises, how to clear a corner so your partner doesn't die, how to read rooms from the hallway. She drew chalk lines, rebuilt angles, stripped ego out of grip and stance, and replaced it with repeatable discipline. Even Markham listened. On the third day he stayed late, frustration cracking through polish. "I've never felt slow," he said. "You're not slow," she answered. "You're loud. Learn to quiet down." "How?" "Count the exits before the faces. Count the reflections before the enemies. Count the breaths." He did. The next run wasn't brilliant. It was better. That mattered. A week later, the visitor log showed a name and nothing more. Briggs glanced at it, then at Elena running a lane with quiet authority. He said nothing. So did she. The work spoke. Graduation came under clean morning light. Timers fell. Angles sharpened. Bragging softened. Elena stood at the edge, not apart now, just a half step back, the place where instructors live. Briggs moved down the formation with orders. When he reached her, he didn't offer a speech. "Sergeant Cortez," he said. "Uniform on." She smiled, barely, and buttoned the blouse over the ink that had forced a reckoning. The fabric settled. The leash, if it remained, lay quiet. Someone somewhere would always try to measure her by what showed. That was fine. The rest didn't require witnesses. The rule stood. The work continued. And the base slept easier for reasons it couldn't name. They trained, adjusted, and learned to trust. Ask the squad what changed and they'll say something simple. The day they ordered her to remove the uniform, they finally saw the person who wore it, not a rumor, not a liability, but a professional with a past written in a language most won't learn and a future that, at last, belongs to her.